Welcome to Alex Rocks. I'm Suzi Dhol.
Hey, I'm Marquis. We've been on quite a journey with the Alex Rocks machine, vehicle, showcase, circus, wagon, whatever you want to call it. Had a lot of cool people come in, a lot of great interviews. The first episode, which was a test pilot.
This is the shit?
This is the shit. This is the show. Tits, little homage to the George next door. Do your research. But yes, that was a live show. We had a bunch of musicians on.
And when did we do? So we did that between the first and second lockdown.
Yeah.
Kind of a blur this year.
That's right. Yes. We were locked down, then we were allowed to do it.
And then we got shut down again.
Then we got shut down again. Could not come in here
at all
for 2 months, maybe more. Limped into it again, back into it with some Zoom interviews with some amazing people, some great artists. But now into this new year, now we are going to be moving into some live and also going mobile with the full show.
So enjoy tonight's episode with the highlights and the lowlights of 2020, and I look forward to us kicking hard next year with our live shows.
Yep, indeed. Into fully equipped venues, full lineups, massive setups, great shows, huge, loud rock and roll bands.
Yeah. Rock on 21. You're quite the Renaissance guy, aren't you, really? You've written some of amazing Australian rock songs, but you've also been involved in literature and art, and we'll touch on that in a bit. What I'd like to talk to you about now is, I'm shooting out of the old George Cinemas, which is the Alex Theatre now. I know you've spent a bit of time here. Can you tell me what it was like for you when you went from being a kind of a local band and then under the Milky Way went international? How did that change your life?
Well, bear in mind we were always touring America and Europe. Like in 1982, we started touring those countries. So when Under the Milky Way became a hit in America, it was sort of like, we felt like it was a bit of, it might have seemed like overnight sort of thing, but we had been touring there quite a lot. I guess, my life just became more gigs, more time traveling, more time on aeroplanes.
So how long is the longest tour you've been on?
Well, in 1990, the year our next album came out, I think we probably did about 200 gigs, kind of pretty much non-stop. Like wow. That's a kind of a world tour in a row, probably with like maybe a week off in between here and there. It's
a glamorous life, isn't it?
Glamorous. Some of it is incredibly glamorous. Obviously when you're swanning around backstage in some big city with a glass of champagne in your hand, meeting all the local sort of people who think that they're interesting, that's kind of glamorous. But other times, getting out of the service station at 4 a.m. in the middle of Idaho to have a wee isn't that glamorous at all. And everything in between.
Yeah.
It's like you've got to really love playing.
Well, rock and roll.
I've done a lot of touring.
Rock and roll chooses you.
What's that?
Rock and roll chooses you. You don't get to choose rock and roll.
Well, many are called, but few are chosen, I guess. And there's a lot of luck involved, and touring is, it's weird because it's hard work and it's a lot of fun at the same time, and a lot of fun to be had, a lot of trouble to be gotten into, but a lot of tedious stuff of just waiting around, and you're only ever as fast as the slowest guy. So, if the whole band goes into town and everybody goes to a different restaurant, everybody goes to a different shop, you can't get back to wherever you want to go until everybody else comes back.
And then you forget the bass player.
Ha 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 ha. Yeah. Well, that is me. So I am a bass player.
You're much more than that, Steve. As I said, you've branched out into many areas of art, including books and literature. You've given a hell of a lot to everyone in Australia with your music and your books. So, Nick, can you tell me about like the weirdest gig you've performed and maybe the strangest place you've ever had to bunk down in?
Been tons of weird gigs. Years ago, there was a real push. Australian music was really popular in Brazil through surf videos, believe it or not. So I was invited to go down and play in Brazil with Spy vs Spy. So I went down with Craig and Mike and picked up a Brazilian drummer, and we did this nuts tour. We got chased out of a joint with a gun. Man, everything that went wrong could have gone wrong, but we ended up doing this one in Rio. At this beer festival, and we didn't go on stage till about 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was pouring, and it was still packed. There was like 10 or 15,000 people. Like, and Spice had some bona fide hits down there. And then there's me. It was absolutely bizarre. There was
How many people were at the festival, do you reckon?
Like 15,000.
Jesus.
Maybe 20.
In the pouring rain.
In the pouring rain like you've never seen.
Wow.
It ended up flooding the city. Anyway.
Besides sleeping in two vans, what's the weirdest place you've slept?
Last year, I did a gig in a place called White Cliffs.
Yeah.
And it's all in opal caves. So I played it with these people have got a cafe in an opal cave, and I ended up staying in they live in underground, so I ended up staying in the underground, which was pretty, when I woke up after sucking piss all night, I just, it was bizarre.
That's fucking awesome.
There's been some really crappy places I've stayed in the year. That one.
I imagine you've had to do some very hard legs over the touring years. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nick.
You guys, I mean, after the fourth album, just released really well at the end of last year, you guys would have been, I imagine, ready to lock in some shows in Europe?
Yeah, and we're primed to really, because ideally what you want to do is you want to make sure you can go back every year. And the last 3 albums, we've had to have a year off the European trip in between, so we've gone every second year.
Yeah.
But I mean, 2 years is still, to get an album written, get it produced well, get the machine up and running, and get the tours booked, and then get over and play. It's 2 years. It's a lot. We did four albums in 3 years here, which was probably the most prolific period that we've had. But it's kind of the most natural thing in the world where you find a good bunch of people to play with. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So, I mean, how long, River, how long have you guys been together from, all up?
Alex Ronjak and I met in the sort of the Croydon Ringwood all ages scene in the mid-90s.
Yeah. Okay.
So about 26 years or so we've been working together.
Wow, okay. Yeah.
And he came in and he started rehearsing with an original band that I was in, playing bass, and those guys actually fired him for joining Bugdust.
Okay.
You can't be in more than one band. And it was, water under the bridge now, obviously, but you just kind of know, hey, I should be playing music with you,
You've put something together, video-wise.
I just, I'm talking gibberish. I've just done a 72-hour bender to get this thing edited together.
Dirt River Radio video, brand new.
Yeah.
Never
premiere,
been seen. Premiere. First time ever
The
on
Boys
Alex
in the
Rocks.
Public Bar. It's a 10-year-old song, but it's one I'm proud of having written. It's
cool.
It's kind of an interesting sort of gender politics kind of angle. I think my life has been so happy for the last sort of decade. I can't write sad love songs and stuff anymore because I'm in too good a place, and I tend to do a bit of social narrative instead and write about the world because that's the source of my stress.
Sounds good. I always talk about a live circuit reopening a little bit. I sound like a broken record. Not this record. This is not broken. Yeah. Look, let's hope this does, create a more healthy
that's it. It's
touring
kind of
circuit in this country. Yeah, as you said, Europe, I suppose I would assume maybe because there's so many countries so close together, it's easy to do that. You can go, you can go to France, to Germany, to Switzerland, to the Netherlands, to Hungary. Yeah, you can do that. You jump in a van and do 6 countries in 2 weeks. It's a little
It's probably going to be a while before we're going to be able to do things like that. So I'm really happy that we are, we've always, especially here in Melbourne, we've had an amazing, thriving live scene, and that's largely due to people like yourself, and Suzi, and lots, Melbourne has that scene.
That's very kind. I mean...
Well, and I think, we all have a kind of a brotherhood, a sisterhood where we look after each other, and there is going to be survival of the fittest for that. There are going to be bands that aren't going to survive this kind of thing, but it's going to see the cream rise. It's also going to see people being more creative. There's a lot that can come from this. We haven't been one for live streams for that sort of content because we're a bloody fucking loud rock band.
Live.
It's not going to come across on a live, on a live stream in our backyard or in our bedroom or what have you. We've got, it's loud, it's raucous, it's dirty. We want that to continue.
That's right. That's
what we do.
Bands like Riff Raiders. That's right. Yes, you're not. It's going to be a poor representation if you do try and do a lot of. Unfortunately, live streamed, unless you've got amazing production and an incredible soundstage and stuff, like we're doing here at the Alex Theatre for Alex Rocks, and we will be going live very soon. But yes, I totally get that. Hey, it's great if you're like a solo acoustic artist or like, sort of a more chilled blues sort of vibe or something you can get a good, representation of, in a small setting.
We're going to do our songs justice. That's what it comes down to for us.
That's right. Yes.
It's about our songs. They're out. That's what has to win.
So when you're not out live, at least you can get a fat fucking Riff Raider sound on your turntable.
You've talked about, your different, aspects of your music industry experience, be it live or production or film. What have you been doing in the last few months?
The perennial question. What have you been doing? Well, the funny thing is, and so I haven't done many interviews. I did a lot. Actually, I did. That's not true. I did a lot of interviews back in March and April because I had a new album of soundtrack music came out. So I was doing a lot of interviews back then, but they've sort of dried up now because nothing's been happening much. But back then, I would always be able to say that it's really odd because I came back from doing the Pop Crime shows, the Roland S. Howard shows over in Europe back in mid-February. Mm-hmm. And I came back to Australia, and it was the first year in ever that I can remember that my calendar was empty.
I know.
I had nothing booked at all.
I know.
And so I came back and I thought, then what'll I do? So then the sort of pandemic thing started kicking off, and I was already planning to sit back and finally write my memoirs that people had been asking me to do for years, and etc. And it was going to have to start a whole set of new projects because I had nothing going on at all. So that's what I've done, basically. I started writing my memoirs, so I'm up to about 60,000 words or something.
I would be very interested
only about
to read
halfway
that.
through my list, so it's going to be huge. I'm also starting a gallery space in West Melbourne.
Great, fantastic.
I know, fantastic timing. We leased the place a few months ago and we can't open, but but we're setting it up and it's looking really good. And I don't know how to run a bar or cafe, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens.
I can hook you up with that.
And it's a gallery, so I think we're allowed to open the gallery space we've got an exhibition we're setting up for November for when people can actually come to the opening.
Yeah.
It's called the One Star, which we didn't want to aim too high. It's just called the One Star. It's in West Melbourne on Victoria Street.
That's great. Not being idle, having something to do, whatever it is so bloody important to mental health.
The battle has actually been bringing the guitars down to something that equates to normal.
So were you all using the same studio monitors? You're gonna, because or you on you're on the iPhone, iPods, and you're listening to. You got the JBL Super.
Yeah.
Not loud enough.
No, crank
That's
that.
how you should mix an album, because an album, you need to be able to hear it on your Holden old radio and also through the big speakers.
Yep.
So
On the
all
old Walkman,
yes.
the Walkman.
Going to the toilet, and I heard that was a Gadinsky trick. Let me just go into the toilet, and I swear, and that was in Stuart Koops' book, excellent book by the way, Stuart. Where and Gadinsky would nip into the toilet, and then come out a minute or two later and be like, "Great, sign him!" Fantastic.
Back to mono.
What was he doing in the toilet?
He was having a listen.
Do not ever ask about Michael in the toilet.
Shut the door. They leave the room. When you want to know if you've got the mix right, leave the room. Walk down the hall and then have a listen.
Yeah.
And if if the vocals are sitting and everything,
Well, that's it.
then you go, hey.
If it sounds okay on the
mix is
worst
working.
radio and the best stereo, it's okay.
Well, that's why you have NS10s in the studio, isn't it?
Oh well, on the wall.
Totally.
Slap them on.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
That's what she said.
Yeah. So hey, and now new video to go with, a couple of videos or something.
We've released a couple of videos. We did a montage on a song called Shifting Sands, one of the first singles from the new album, Forgotten Ancestors. And we've also released Down to the Stars.
Yeah. New album, just ready to roll into 2021.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
It's a nice way to bookend probably the greatest year that we've ever had, I think. So,
that we haven't had.
Yeah.
We've had a great year at home.
I pretty much think it's May still. I don't understand.
Yeah, there's some good and bad.
We stood still and we've been creative. We've written a lot of riffs and tunes in that whole time. So we've got album 3 demos in the bag too. So that's
right. One of the biggest positives out of all this is the amount of time you've been able to spend on writing and honing.
Be a lot of wins with
can't be out playing, can we?
No. That's the interesting thing, and I think we've noticed it a lot with the bands we've interviewed, especially between Melbourne and Sydney and other bands. Just the difference in attitude and the presentation of their music. So a lot of Melbourne bands have been doing things like the Mercy Kills and Fuck the Fifth Road Dream Scene and whatnot. Have been doing things solo, and the type of video clip and the lyric that is coming out at the moment is very indicative of what we have been going through.
Yeah.
Through music, we get exaltation and we get to understand and see the world in a different light, and it helps people.
It does.
It really does. And losing the ability to come together as a collective over the last 8 months, I think has been...
It's been tricky, and so that's when a lot of people have reached for music in their own space.
Yeah.
And found their own unique relationship with it to help them through.
So what relationship you had?
I've had a relationship with my acoustic guitar.
Well, you spoke about collaboration being you're stronger, the bigger with that some of your individual parts aren't as strong as a collaboration, because you never know where those ideas are going to come from, and I think that's forced a lot of artists, or especially musicians, to work tightly together, because you're suddenly, all you can do is send each other audio files or make videos with Zoom, or and by not actually being able to go out and play gigs and be on that usual familiar treadmill, you are actually having to look to your comrades, the people you're in a band with or who you're working with, and create and come up with something a little more focused, possibly, than you normally would.
I agree too, because there's the distraction of that sort of constant treadmill of doing gigs and doing all of that stuff, and without that there was a there was a call to everyone to face the abyss.
Yeah.
Did you have a look at that?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Suffer writer's
Don't look
block?
too long into the abyss.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the only thing in the abyss is you, so it's all right.
I know a lot
Looks
of
back at you.
Yeah, it
people
does.
have suffered writer's block.
There was I did have, because I was missing the collaboration.
Yeah.
But I also was leaning heavily into it as my bridge across to the next whatever we were going to find. At the
I
end
found
of
it
that.
really very interesting during the Alex Rocks. I think we're up to, this is episode 13. We've been interviewing bands from around Australia, and I've noticed the difference between the bands and their expressions and the way that Sydney bands are expressing themselves. And there's been a big difference.
Yeah.
But we're coming out of it now.
Okay, right,
But,
yeah.
and also with
yeah.
the video clips that we've been showing and things like that, there's a strong theme already about what we've gone through this year.
Yep.
Kim, scientists, you know, 1976 you were listed as the first punk rock band with extremists.
That was, well, it must have been Cheap Nasties or something. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then it evolved into the Scientists.
Things got that way. I ended up being in a band called the Scientists. I suppose you could say it evolved into it, but there were different guys. What happened was I had this band called the Cheap Nasties, and we used to fight all the time, and I left, and then a week later they reformed without me.
All the best bands fight all the time.
Yeah, but the best bands don't reform without their lead singer and then go on and become mannequins.
Are you hinting about something about the Scientists? With
No. The Scientist is really good. Scientist was great.
Is there any more work that might come out of that?
Yeah, well, we did a extensive back catalogue reissue a couple of years ago on a Chicago label called Numero. And that kind of kick-started us again. We were in suspended animation for so long, and we did a tour of Europe. We did a tour of we did 2 tours of USA, and then another separate show at a festival. So it seems like it was really happening, and then COVID hit us. But we did manage to get an album in the can. At the end of last year, because we were inducted finally into the Perth, the WA, the Whammies Hall of Fame.
Yay!
And because of that, we were all in the one place, so we recorded. We got into a studio there and we recorded this album, and that's coming out on In the Red, which is a sort of a LA. It's an LA label. Kid Congo's on that, and
Sure. Your most interesting collaboration. So because you've worked with so many great artists. So what was the most weirdest or interesting?
God, I really couldn't be definitive about that and say anything.
So everyone you work with was weird and interesting?
They're all weird and interesting, yes, they are. They are a bunch of absolute weirdos. I mean, you got Tex, you got Dave Faulkner. You couldn't get more extreme, but they're both extraordinary talented people that do things their own way. Ron Pino is another one.
Oh
he's
my
just
God,
like
the great Ron Pino.
He's possibly the most talented person that I've worked with. He's just incredible. But here's a guy who thinks that making up words on the spot is easier than learning.
Hey Olga, hey Social Cat.
Hey.
Where are you at?
We're just chilling out in New York.
Downtown.
New York, baby.
Busking with the cat.
Happy New Year's, guys. Alex rocks.
You too.
Alex rocks. Take care, sister. See you in 21. Thanks, Olga.
Please subscribe. And
it's good night from him.
And it's good night from her.
Alex rocks.
See ya.